Okay. So what I'm talking about is that when you think about your um, trauma or your shadow or anything like that, one of the things that is important to remember is that your higher self chose this particular roll of the dice. They're like, I want this type of generational trauma. I want this type of this, and this type of this, because they're looking to correct something. They're looking to accomplish something, and they're playing the long game. Like, you don't need to fix it all in this lifetime. They just want, like, something, like for some people, it's just reconciling a wrong that happened in your ancestral line. For some people, it's something different. Not everybody gets it right, obviously. um, but you have to remember that, like, the things about yourself that you didn't like, that you don't like, that you want to change, or that you hold resentment for. Like, a lot of people that I hear online have a lot of resentment for the person that they've become because of their trauma. Um, like, I'm this way because of them. And, like, yes, however, a more helpful way to look at that, like, once you've seen it, once you've put the blame where the blame goes and you've mourned it, like, those steps are still important, but where you go from there is, how do I use this to my advantage? Because that's what your higher self wants. It didn't do it on accident. It ran you through hell for a certain reason. Some people think that the most spiritual people often happen to have the most trauma, soul injury, whatever you want to call it, because they have to go through something to crack crack the line open and then move into something new. Like, you're stuck in a generational spiral, and something has to happen for it to reach a breaking point. And that's happening for a lot of us in this lifetimes. Like, our parents weren't able to do it, their parents fucking weren't able to do it, but for us, we've reached a breaking point. And so it's cracking within us, and we are shifting our lives away from previous generations' way of doing things. And the things that they've taught you can also be used as a tool. That's part of shadow work. That's part of de-shaming yourself, is the things that you don't like about yourself. You still have to find them useful somehow, which means that you have to forgive yourself for having those characteristics. Like, I could have been this if it wasn't for that, or whatever it is. Like, I wish I knew then what I knew now. Like, I've wasted years of my life, blah, 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 blah. All those things that you hold resentment to yourself for. You got to let it go and find, like, for example, I feel like I'm pretty old on here, it feels like, when it comes to having these experiences. But what I realize is that part of the benefit that I can offer is a lifetime's worth of lived experience and knowledge and grounding and self exploration that just focused on personal healing, and then bringing into it a more spiritual, a more worldly and energetic lens to it, which is enjoyable in a lot of ways, because it's the science. Like, it pushes the edge of science into where it becomes woo woo, and so things are getting proven right and wrong, left and right now, because it's all up for grabs. And so that's what I'm doing in my mind, is I'm, like, testing theories. That's why I get really frustrated when I can't confirm something. Like, that's what's frustrating about this, is, like, I have a hard time because there's a lot of, like, I'm not having, I need, like, other people to calibrate whether or not what I'm experiencing is real. And while the people in my life can like see that I've changed, and I can see that I've changed, that doesn't necessarily mean that like my internal world is accurate. Um, and so it's like, but what I'm experiencing is a spiritual experience. So I have to go to spiritual people and be like, is this normal? Am I crazy? Like that kind of thing. Um, so, but to my point, so like for me, age, or like being a woman that's just like, I'm very average looking. Like, why should you listen to me? Right. So like there's a lot of kind of insecurities around that. And that's part of whatever. That's part of my niche. Like there's a lot of bias that exists out there right now towards someone who looks like me, and whether I've got anything interesting to say right now. I don't actually know if I do. I think there's a lot of people that can say it a lot better than me. I do think that what is unfolding, though, with the books and the calling, that so much of these videos will be relevant in like 5 years. Like that's when people will be curious about who I am. And so because of my age, I'm able to play the long game better. I'm able to move through a lot of these obstacles, these spiritual obstacles, at a very accelerated rate because I've already healed. I already know how to rewire myself. I already know how to pivot many times over. So, like a year ago, I was a complete wreck internally. I felt so fucking confused. Like this time last year, oh my God, I wasn't posting because I had no, like, I was so like, what is happening? I know who I am now. I got it. I've gone through a lot of fucking growth over this last year. And you can't see much of it on the outside, but there's a lot of it on the inside. And my age, my ability to remain kind of anonymous and kind of obscure at this kind of fledgling stage where I get to feel like I've got kind of like a low consequence online persona right now. That's not always going to be the case. And so I think of this as one of the many benefits of this life that I was gifted. I was very heavily veiled my whole life. Like zero supernatural things happened to me my entire life. Very heavily veiled. I understand that now. That wasn't a mistake. My bloodline was chosen for the degree to which it had veiled itself, to the degree to which it had suppressed itself. My mother literally taught me how to mask. She sat me down when I was a kid and I was talking about how hard it was to make friends, and she's like, what you do is you look at other people, you think about the things in them that you like, then you become that. She literally fucking told me that multiple times. She's like, this is how you mask. This is how you exist in this world. And so, and then I've had other posts on here where I talk about that, like the part of me that was like, I'm calling it my Leo part of me right now. That's just like extroverted, like ballsy, blah, 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 a performer. I just like locked it in a box and I just shut down. And like, how did I know how to do that? If not for my generational trauma that I inherited that allowed me to dissociate a part of myself into a fucking box and mask so heavily that I could exist in this world. That chameleon ability, that ability to like lock parts of myself away or to look at people and look and have a lifetime worth of practicing looking at people and seeing what I like about you. When I put it that way, it doesn't sound so bad, does it? It sounds like I can walk into any room and be comfortable. And it sounds like everybody I look at things about them that I admire, things about them that I see that are cool or interesting or unique. I've taken what I thought was a deficit, was something to be ashamed of about myself, that I'd masked so heavily my whole life. And I'm like, actually, it helps me see the beauty in people. Now that I've learned not to mask, the part of it that remains ain't so bad, right? That's important when it comes to healing and spirituality. That's what it looks like to take the parts of you that you find shameful, that just had to survive, and you look at it in a way that makes you a little proud of yourself. That's called self-love. And I see it in you because I was looking for it all along. And this is your reminder to see it in you too. The things that you think are despicable about yourself are probably the things that I think are so unique about you and so interesting and part of what just makes you you. And the fact that you could recover from that you became the person you became. That's a story I want to hear about. I love you guys. Good night.